Once you guys have your outline drawn on your cube, you need to start actually making the artwork in the squares. We're going to do a different technique or a different kind of theme for each square on that cube. We're starting with value and pencil because honestly, it's the easiest of all of them, and I want to kind of ease you in and build your confidence as you go. So when you're ready to move on, you're going to come get a worksheet from me. You need a pencil. Okay, that pencil. Mine has an eraser on it. You might find that helpful. And then if you want, you have the option of using a blending stump. Blending stumps are here. I will also put them over on the counter where you've been finding your materials. You do not have to use a blending stump. You can also blend with like your finger or not blend at all. It's really up to you how you like to blend your pencil. But these are the tools that I have available to you. So to start this kind of practice activity, you are going to be just building some skills and practicing some things that I'm going to have you look for in your finished design. Okay, so we're starting with some practice activities. This handout tells you the definition of value, which is an element of art. It tells you what a value scale is, and then it gives you some instructions on creating a value scale. You need to make a value scale to practice, so when you get to your actual project, you have been able to successfully break down different values with pencil. So this value scale has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 sections here. And it goes from lightest to darkest. So in my lightest value, it's up to you if you want to start with light or dark. But in my lightest value, I'm going to start with light. And I'm just going to, as light as I can, draw with this pencil. You will probably have an easier time if you use a regular pencil versus a mechanical pencil. Those of you who are most comfortable with mechanical pencils, you might struggle a little bit here because mechanical pencils' leads are so small, they make shading kind of difficult. Okay, so there's my lightest value. I use my finger to blend this. You can use the blending step if you want. Then I'm going to go over to my darkest value, and I'm going to see how dark I can get this square here so I know how to fill in the rest of the spaces in between. I'm going to go through and color this in neatly, and then I'm going to actually build up a couple of layers on top of this. So this is pretty neat. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to build up another layer of value. This is easiest for me versus going straight in with the darkest value because it's a little bit more even. You could use your blending stump to fill in some of the white spaces that you can see, the kind of pencil marks. And then I might even be able to go in one more time and add an even darker value on top of here. So I think this is about the darkest I'm gonna get. So now I can fill in the rest of these spaces. It's up to you if you wanna, like I said, work from light to dark or dark to light. I think I'm gonna kind of work on either end until I meet in the middle at kind of the middle 50% value. So I'm just going to kind of fill this in. I'm not gonna go as dark as I did with the last one. I want you to do this neatly, stay in those boxes, use your eraser if you need to. I'm not perfect. My value is kind of spilling out the tops and the bottoms. I'm gonna go back in and clean it up with an eraser. So I can tell right now that this value to this value, this is probably too big of a jump. So I'm just gonna go back in one more time with another layer. I'm not gonna go as hard as I did in the darkest square because I do want there to be a difference between this square and my darkest square. Okay, so I'm gonna fill that in. I can use my blending stump if I don't want my fingers to get all dirty. And then I can clean up. And then I would just kind of keep going until I get all the way down to the lightest value. I'm not going to finish this entire thing for the sake of time, but I will put a finished example up on the cabinets where I have been putting the kind of examples or the samples for this project. Okay, so whoops. Here I wasn't paying attention. Fill that back in. All right, so there's 3 steps. If it gets too, I'm not taking my time. If it gets too dark here, I can erase with my eraser and add another layer of value on top. Just try not to go super hard, super fast. Build it up in layers if you can. The next activity here is to add value to these objects to create the illusion of form. Form is another one of those art elements. And form is 3-dimensional. Obviously, we can't have like actual 3-dimensional worksheets, you know, where you can see form on here, but we can use value and shading to create the illusion of form. So when a light source, this little sun in the corner here, I can give it a little smiley face, when that sun illuminates these things, we can imagine how the light hits them to create value, which makes them look 3-dimensional. So with this cube, cubes are pretty easy. Do you think it's the top, the side, or the back that's going to be the lightest value? The top. Yep, the top is going to be the lightest value. So I can color in the lightest value. And if I wanted to get really technical here, this corner and edge here is probably a tiny bit darker than over here where the sun is illuminating that side the most. But you don't have to get that technical if you don't want to. And then what side is the darkest? The side or the back? The back is definitely the darkest because light is not hitting it. So I can make that the darkest. And then the side is going to be a value in between. And the side especially is one where I think you could add a little bit of value change within that side. Because where it is at the top, this top upper corner is probably lighter than down here. So you can just shade that in. It's going to be a value probably somewhere in the middle of these two, because it's still getting a little bit of light, but not a ton. So I can fill that in. And if I do this and decide that my top is maybe too dark still, I can go in and I can erase a little bit to pull up some of that value. And then instead of using my blending stump, I might just go in with my finger because my blending stump has a lot of pencil on it. Okay, so that gives it the illusion of form. For the sphere, this circle here, this is going to be a sphere. I'm not expecting you to make the cast shadow that would happen on these things. I'm just expecting you to turn these two things into a 3-dimensional form. So for that, my light source is probably hitting over here. This is probably where the highlight is going to be, or the lightest spot. And then this spot down here is probably the darkest. So I'm going to fill in kind of rough my darkest spot, and then I can kind of go like a value scale as I fill this in. And it's going to get a little bit lighter each time. I'm going kind of rough here because I can use my blending stump to blend these spaces. I left a tiny little white line down here because there is technically, there's usually a highlight down there as a reflection off of whatever kind of surface this is sitting on. You don't have to get that technical with it if you don't want to. So I'm going to use my blending stump. I'm going to blend these things. I'm going to leave a little highlight. And then I can go back in and touch things up if I need to. And you guys will have a lot more time to take on this. I'm kind of speeding through it so you guys can actually get some work done today. Okay, so this is giving this circle the illusion of form. Make sense? All right, so there goes my computer. Wake it back up. All right, so once you have the worksheet done, you're gonna come check in with me You're going to turn in that worksheet. And then you are going to turn to your cube. You have 6 designs to choose from on your cube. For this activity, for this kind of section of the project, you need to pick a good section for the pencil drawing where we're going to illustrate value and the illusion of form. So I'm going to expect you to have 5 different values on this section. So you're going to use your value scale activity to have at least 5 different values. And then in at least one spot, you're going to create the illusion of form. What kind of spaces do you think are good for creating the illusion of form? What do you think I might look for? Yeah.
Like a sphere, like a round object.
A round object, yes, definitely. That is one thing I could look for. What else do you think? I'm actually going to create illusion of form right here in this line. I'm going to make this and this space here, and maybe even this one here, look kind of like a tube or a cylinder. So I'm going to shade the edges of this shape really dark, and as it gets to the middle, it's going to be light, and then it's going to get dark again as it kind of goes to the edges, so it looks like it's rounded. So when I shade that, it's up to you if you want to start with just your values or if you want to add your form in first. But if I'm starting here, I might build up my values on the edge of this shape, and then it's going to get lighter, and then it's going to get darker again. And I'm going to repeat this throughout the whole thing. I'm moving my pencil at an angle, and I'm building up layers. I will blend this out when I'm done. Thank you. So I'm building it up in layers. Right now it's obviously a little choppy. I don't want to go into the next cube. All right, so at the edges, I'm actually going to make this even darker. So it's getting there. It's starting to look three-dimensional. Now I'm going to use my blending stump, and like I said, using a blending stump is totally personal preference. Some of you really despise them and you don't want to use them. Some of you love them because it adds a nice smooth quality to your pencil. I could go either way. Okay. And I see some overlap here where it's not really blended throughout the middle. So that is starting to look three-dimensional, but I think the middle of this is not light enough. So I'm going to take my pencil eraser, and I'm just going to start erasing the highlights out. And then I can blend a little bit more here. And I can just keep going back and forth between pencil, eraser, and blending stump until I'm happy with the result. So this is going to end up looking like a tube or a wire or a pipe, something that has three-dimensionality and is a form. Make sense so far? Okay, so this space here, I think this is going to be a good place to show my 5 different values. So I think I'm actually going to make this look like a value scale where in the middle, I'm going to make this maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm actually going to have 6 values. So I think what I'm going to do is start with a really dark value in the center, and then I'm going to move outwards and make the next lighter value, the next lighter value, next lighter value, next lighter value, next lighter to the lightest out here. So it looks like a value scale in here. If you don't have any place in your design that has something that you can make like this, I'm okay with you kind of altering your design a little bit or adding things to make it work. So like if I could add this, if this wasn't here, I could add it here in this space. Or I could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 spaces, I could make the 5 different values. Does that kind of make sense? So I'm just gonna do 2 of these values with you today so you can get to work. So I might start here by coloring in my darkest value. So my darkest value might go here. And I'm not even gonna color the whole thing in, but I'm gonna go back with my blending stump to blend and clean up my edges. And then for the next one, I'm gonna go a little bit lighter. And like I said, I can go in with my blending stump to smooth this out and make my job a little bit easier. Now, if there's not enough contrast between these two, I could always add a hard line, but I kind of like the subtle value change between these, so I think I'm gonna leave it. Okay, so when you get to this part of it, you need at least one spot where you are showing value, you're using value to create the illusion of form, and then you need at least 5 distinctive values in your square. We are using pencil, blending stump, and eraser. Any questions for me? Okay,